Hey everybody, today I am taking a look at Cascadero, which is a 2 to 4 player board game designed by Rainer Knizia, artwork by Ian O'Toole. This one takes around 45 minutes to play on average. Now before I get started on my review of Cascadero, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Okay, so let's talk through how the game works, and I should say that this game does come with a double-sided board. The side I'm showing you here comes with these farmer tokens, which are added from the other side. So basically, the other side is simpler than this version, so this side I'm going to show you has everything you need to know, essentially. But basically, the objective of this game is to get as many points as you can. However, you will only be eligible for scoring if you reach the top of your track of your matching colour. So as the yellow player here, I won't be able to win unless I reach right at the top of this yellow track. Now there is an exception to that if nobody reaches the top, but generally speaking somebody will, so you want to be making sure you hit that pinnacle. Now gameplay wise is very simple, where all you're going to be doing is you're going to deploy one of your little envoys anywhere you want onto the big hex map here. So I could go here, for example, like so, then it would be my opponent's turn, and then it would be my turn again. So just showing you some examples here. So if I ever placed a envoy, and it reaches a city or one of these towns for the first time, and that has to be at least a group of 2, then you are going to go up on that matching track. So you can see here that I've reached this orange track for the first time, therefore I'll go up on the orange track like so. Now if I'm the first player to do that, then I would get 1 movement up the track, but if I'm the second or subsequent player, then I would go up 2 spaces on that particular coloured track. Now these white pieces on the map here as well, they will increase it by 1 again. So again, if you're the first player on one of these white cities, then you go up twice, and if you're the second or third or fourth or whatever, you'd go up 3 times. So those are particularly powerful towns to visit. Now when you go up these tracks, you can see that you are going to get a number of bonuses. So these 4 tracks here matching the player's colours come with these bonuses here, which will give you victory points if you are the first or following players to reach that particular spot. They might give you these little seals here if you land exactly on that spot, and these seals are cool because when you deploy them, you can deploy them with your envoys and they'll instantly count as a group. So, you know, as I said earlier, you need to have at least a group of 2 before you reach a town. This time you could go straight in to a town like so and move instantly up on that track. So it saves you a turn, essentially. Other bonuses on the track come with these little cube movers. So if I reach this spot, that would instantly let me move up another spot, and as you can imagine, that can combo and domino with other bonuses. If you reach one of these seal spots and the seal's already gone, then you'll get to shift one of your envoys to an adjacent spot. You won't get a bonus, but it does let you again cover more ground, get more victory points, take extra placement actions, more victory points, and so on. Now, in addition to trying to climb these tracks and get points that way, you can see in the center of the board here, you have a number of objectives that you can go for. So these top 6 here are first come, first served. So you want to be racing to get to these objectives. And I'll explain what these are. So this is to get all 5 of your cubes to the level 1 spot with the little fleur-de-lis here. So if you're the first person to get all of your pieces there, then you'll get 3 points. If you get 3 of your pieces to the level 2 spot, you'll get 3 points, or 1 of your pieces to the top spot, you'll get 3 points. Now these objectives here are common objectives that everybody can get with no kind of competition really. This is where you will get points based on connecting 2 different places, or sorry, 2 different locations of the same colour together. So if I built a whole chain like this with these blue pieces, so with these yellow pieces, but I attach these 2 blue towns together, then I could place my little flag showing that, you know, I've attached these 2 blue towns together, and I would get 2 points for doing that. And if you get all 5 of those done, then you'll get a bonus 10 points, but that's quite difficult to do. The other race objectives are to have 3 seals in your supply, to connect 5 cities of different colours together, or to collect 3 cities of the same colour together. And you can see here also on the track that there are some of these crossed out spaces, and that means in order to cross that little threshold there, you need to move up by at least 2 spaces in a single turn. So if I was here and I moved 2 spaces, I'll be bumped back to this spot like so. So you need to be making sure that you're timing that just right. Now with this farmer side of the board, you do have these tokens as well, which are pretty self-explanatory, but much like the towns, you need to have someone next to it before you can venture onto it like so. You can't just go straight on to that spot. So in this example, you can place more workers, get victory points, move more cubes up your tracks, and so on. And as I said, you're going to keep on doing that until somebody has reached to 50 points or somebody has deployed all of their envoys. And then you're going to calculate victory points based on, I know, if somebody's reached the top of the track, then only the players who've reached to the top will be eligible for scoring, and amongst those, you'll be the person with the most victory points. If nobody reached the top of the track, then it's just going to come down to victory points alone. Okay, so let's start by saying that I am a huge Reiner Knizia fan, and I'm a particular fan of his route building style games of this nature. So naturally, I was very excited for this one to come out, and to be honest, this was at the forefront of my most anticipated games of 2024, especially when you mix that genre of game with the art style of this. You know, I love medieval style games, and this might just be my favourite box cover of all time. It's absolutely stunning to look at. The graphic design is really good. But let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of the gameplay here. So, you know, I do like the minimalist nature of the gameplay in terms of what you're doing on your turn. Simply place one of your little envoys down and get the relevant bonus should you trigger, you know, a scoring of one of the towns or get one of the bonuses, or of course reach one of these objectives. But I have to say that I think the flow of this game isn't quite as smooth as some of his others of this nature. You know, games like Through the Desert, Babylonia, Blue Lagoon. I think they're a bit more free-flowing. And a big part of that for me, and this might sound silly, is that the kind of polarizing parts of the game, as in the map movement and the track climbing, I don't think they blend as harmoniously as I would have expected, because it seems like you're just doing something here, then you're looking over here, and you're always going back and forth, moving up one spot on the track, whatever. And it's very difficult to plan out what you actually want to do because you are juggling so much information in your head, especially when you start hitting these points like this, when you're starting to move other tracks as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I really do like this idea of getting bonuses as you go. This kind of reminds me of another Knizia game called Keltis, where you're getting these huge combos by climbing up this track, let you climb up this track, lets you put another one down, which lets you do this action, which gets you some points, and so on. So the combinations here are really cool, but I do find that boiled down nature of this grid movement is slightly, or the attention is slightly taken away from this because of that track climbing. Now, I also tend to like Knizia's twists on scoring in games. Now, the twist in this one is that you need to reach the top of your particular track before you are eligible for winning the game. And for me, that put you in a little bit too much of a box in this one, because obviously you're going to really focus on your particular colour. And it seems like you don't have that much wiggle room to do other things. Now, don't get me wrong, you can, you know, get to the midriff of most other of the tracks if you focus on doing that. But of course, you're always going to prioritise your own colour. And I must admit, it can feel a little bit deflating and a bit anticlimactic if you're doing really well on points. Your opponent maybe isn't doing so well, but they reach the top of their track and they win. So, you know, it can draw to a bit of a halt, especially when you burn through envoys at different paces because of the bonuses that you're getting. I do quite like the public objectives here. You know, racing to get to these particular ones is a difficult thing to do, and you have to focus on doing that, which may detract from your track climbing. And I do also like the fact that you can go for these as well without the worry of people taking those spots from you. But of course, only one person can go on each spot on the hex grid. Therefore, people will be blocking off your routes either, you know, deliberately or inadvertently. And this is kind of the next talking point I want to mention. I do feel the game is a little bit loose unless you are playing with the full complement of 4 players. Now, even at 3 players, I didn't feel like I was massively blocked in or boxed off for doing stuff, which meant that the sense of urgency to get to particular spots wasn't as interesting as the other Knizia route building style games. I think of games like Babylonia. If somebody goes somewhere, that's a huge opportunity cost for something else, whereas this one, it didn't quite feel as strong. Now, that being said, I do feel like this side of the board with these farmer tokens is a bit more interesting because getting a 3-pointer is quite nice. And the other side is just, it has a little bit less going on and it doesn't kind of pull you in different directions as much. Now, despite the potential for some cool combos in this game, I do think that the game lacks those big turns. Like, for example, like when you climb these tracks or when you get this particular action to shift one of your envoys to the next, you don't actually score that particular town if you were to do that. So, if I had this shift action and went here, I wouldn't score this town. I'm not sure why that is the case. Maybe because it can be abused a bit too much. But I felt like that would have been a cooler thing to do and it makes your turns feel more meaningful. It just feels a little bit too subtle for me. The game does flow at a nice pace and it does not outstay its welcome at all. So I definitely do have to mention that. 45 minutes for a game like this feels right on the money for me. And production-wise, I think this game looks fantastic. It does mix that cool medieval style artwork with the bright colours and still very functional components very well. And all the wooden meeples look fantastic and all these bright and vibrant colours, all matching those tracks. So yeah, no issues at all. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small. Everything's very clear symbology-wise. So yeah, when it comes to production, this is top marks from me. Okay, so let's get into some final thoughts for Cascadero. And I think I do have to asterisk this review by the fact that I am such a huge Knizia fanboy and a particular fan of these styles of games. And because of that, I hold this style of game in the highest possible regard and I hold them to the highest standards because of that. And because for those reasons, I feel like I cannot avoid saying that this game was a little bit of a disappointment for me. I think it's a little bit too clunky. Always kind of just doing something and hoping it works out. I think that the tension isn't quite there when it comes to the grid placement, particularly when you are playing at 2 or 3 players, which I think is a big no-no in a game like this. What other Knizia game do you know that don't section off a portion of the map when you play with lower player counts? This game does not do that. There is some, relatively decent interaction when it comes to reaching for the objectives. And sometimes routes will be blocked off, but you can always find a way around that. I do like the Keltist style track movement. I think this is cool. But again, all in all, I think the game is a little bit too subtle and maybe tries to be a little bit too clever for its own good. And, maybe even lacks that fun factor by taking those big turns. Everything just feels too small here. And, this game did come hand in hand with a roll and write version of the game called Cascadero, which I haven't played yet. And I have a feeling that this game would actually lend itself better to a roll and write style game rather than a full-sized board game. Because I think you can get the whole feel of the game in a pen and paper quite easily, and I don't really see the point in having the both of them. Now, I've not played Cascadero yet, but that's just going on my gut reaction. Now, this review might sound like it's very negative, and I don't want it to sound like that, because this is still a good game. It's still probably a 5.5, a 6 out of 10 for me. But as I said, when I wanted this game, I was almost expecting it to be my favourite game of the year because it has everything that I want. I love that grid movement, I love track climbing, but they just do not harmonise very well here, in my opinion. Again, it can feel a little bit too anticlimactic, doesn't scale too well. The replayability isn't great because the tension doesn't come through very strongly on the grid. So yeah, it's just a bit of a disappointment for me, which I'm very, very sad to say, especially when it looks so gorgeous and definitely my favourite box cover of all time. So, surprised but disappointed to say that this one did not work for me. So that is Cascadero.